Okay, so I want to talk about terrible advice because terrible advice is like something that you're gonna hear all your life and you're never gonna see the end of it because seemingly people think that they have some kind of useful thing to tell you, even though the advice that they're giving you is something that's been said probably a million times to you and that has no actual value or knowledge or anything unique in it. But they still, for some reason, feel compelled to tell you that, maybe to make themselves feel better. Probably most likely to shut you up and gaslight you, tell you to stop complaining so that you can get back to work and that you're not inconvenient to them. Because I think a lot of people get this kind of fear that when someone complains, when someone is unsatisfied, it means that they think that person that is unsatisfied kind of has a sense of wanting to be better, to want something superior for themselves, to kind of stops to become more lazy, to kind of fight the system. And they see that kind of as threatening because they themselves, you know, they're doing their jobs, they're not asking questions, they're doing what they're told. So they're like, "Why? Who is this guy? Does he think he's better than me? Who does he think he is? Does he want to slack off and make me do the work?" So they have this kind of mentality. So they just want to shut you up. And men obviously have this to a much higher degree. I'm sure you guys have heard it endlessly. All these guys who tell you you're a loser and you need to just work hard, you need to get it together, and whatever they're gonna tell you. To a degree they're right. Sure, you gotta be performant. It's nice to do good things. It's nice to be successful and all, but this attitude where everything is your personal fault, where there's no complaints that are valid, where there's nothing else to be done than to just grind away at yourself until you've made $1 billion or you're dead, is kind of a terrible attitude in my opinion. So all this advice that you hear is really just like a big excuse for them to just move, to just avoid you and just dismiss you. Because if people actually cared, do you think they would just give these boilerplates like responses that you've heard a billion times? If you actually cared about a human being, you would actually try to understand what's happening. You would actually try to give something substantial, some kind of actual direction, some kind of unusual knowledge, something that could actually be valuable in that situation. You would actually try to assess and maybe give something useful or at least some understanding and some empathy to that person. But now people just tell you to just go to the gym and drink water and just take 50 showers a day, which is, I don't think that's gonna work. I think we've done enough of that. But these people just have that to tell you. They don't really have anything much. So we're stuck with these people, and these people don't seem to understand what advice is even supposed to be. Even if you were to give advice that's good, you would need to give something that's actually actionable. And when I mean actionable, I don't mean something that seems like you should be able to do it, because when someone is struggling, when someone is having issues, you can't just give them some generic advice of do a certain thing, because that person is already having difficulties with doing basic things. So you're gonna have to find something that's they're already able to do or they're already doing, and you're gonna need to tell them to do it maybe in a slightly different way, or maybe do it for a certain period of time or at a certain time, and maybe from that build a certain pattern, a certain routine that will eventually result in a long-term change over time. That's kind of how advice, at least this brand of very simplistic kind of a life style kind of organization advice, that's really the best that you could give. You should give something that follows this kind of scheme that I just described, because otherwise you can't really say much to anybody. If you really wanted to give something useful, you'd need to give them some kind of incredible information, something about the stock market, how to make money, the numbers of the lottery, some kind of place to go where they'll offer you some kind of opportunity. You'll need to connect to them to someone. You need to actually do something. You can't just give random advices about how to drink water correctly or whatever stuff like that. And that's why and that's why really you can't give advice. There's really no point. And we've understood it again and again that a lot of these advices are not useful. If people really wanted to do what they're trying to do, I guess, they would need to spit out of their mouth not some meaningless words, but they would need to spit out of their mouth an entire life, an entire great, healthy relationship, good parents, good money, a good childhood, a good school, a good environment, a healthy body, good genetics, they would need to spit out an entire institution that sustains a healthy society into the background. And a new brain, probably, because at this point we're probably too broken to even interact with normal society. That's what they would need to spit out of their mouth if they really wanted to make the change that they're attempting to do. So it's not an easy task at all. And you know what? Maybe a lot of time they should just maybe give up. When I hear all these advices, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to react. A lot of the time I'm thinking you shouldn't even waste your time giving advice, because what's the point? People need to learn by themselves. People make their choices. What the hell you're doing giving advice? It's like, especially when it's all this boomer advice that seems to go nowhere and just doesn't apply at all. Go outside, just buy a house, just do this, just that, just. All these just do this advice are just complete trash, because it's so obvious. If you could just do a thing, you would have done it. It's not like you've never heard of it. It's not like you've never heard of taking a shower, all these things, or whatever they're telling you. It's because that's not the end all be all. It's because that's not enough to actually succeed. And here comes the real issue that they've tried to avoid for so long, is that the society has actually changed. That there's an actual systemic, as cringe as that sounds, there's an actual systemic problem in the society where things have changed in a way that makes relationships extremely difficult, that makes economic prosperity very difficult. And we've seen this again and again in many ways. Buying a house, it costs like multiple millions of dollars. Jobs are not paying you much, and the jobs themselves suck. Everyone's expected to be extremely qualified for basic jobs. And it seems like we're kind of going nowhere anyway, because all of the society is just extremely unappealing to live in and extremely difficult. It's like everything is a hardship. Nothing is really comfortable. And your best hope of a life is that you save enough money so that when you're like 65 or maybe 70, or who knows, you'll have enough money so that maybe you can sit in a nursing home somewhere and just die off with being treated like crap by nurses until you die like a dumbass and your family hates you because you're a piece of shit that's taking all their money. That's what boomers are doing right now, and all these guys. And that's not a life. That's not how life is supposed to be. And we can't really do anything about it. All we can do is complain. All we can do is witness it. But it's just not correct. It's just not how life is supposed to be. When I see what the world kind of has in store for me, I'm very tempted to just go in some mountain and like live alone in some cabin, fishing fish. But even something like that seems so much more appealing to than going to work in these stupid jobs, to just live in a shoebox apparent apartment and like a concrete box in some crappy neighborhood where you're just going to be struggling constantly, and there's nothing in it for you anyway, because the social environment has gotten degraded to such a degree that your family doesn't even exist and your family hates you, completely dysfunctional, and there's no friendships and there's no social environment. You're running around in these places trying to find some connection, but nobody really stays with you because everything's so moving and people find jobs in other places and people are just changing homes and changing apartments, and there's just nothing holding people together. So your life is kind of destined to be extremely bizarre and uncomfortable permanently. So it's very tempting to just go away somewhere and hide away, but you can't even really do that. You can't even actually escape to some place and just become a fisherman in some bizarre place, because everything is owned by land leeches nowadays. Everything is controlled by the government and is being policed at all times. You can't really go anywhere, which is why this society is starting to look a lot like some kind of prison, because some kind of gigantic prison, because in the past you kind of had a choice to not opt out of society. You had a choice to opt out of society, to not follow the social contract. If you were born in a society and you rejected it and you didn't want to work, you had reasons why you didn't want to participate, you could just go off somewhere else. There was a bunch of land. You could just go off somewhere else and reconstruct your own community, reconstruct your own life, just live independently if you wanted in the far past. But nowadays, there isn't anything like that. Everything is encompassed in the society. So you're literally forced to participate and participate well in the way that they're asking you to participate, or you're dead. You're essentially homeless and you're living on the edge. You can't really build anything new. And I think that's kind of egregious, but I don't want to just complain, you know? I don't want to just complain. Hopefully, there's some kind of crack, there's a hole that we can go through and maybe find something better. But for now, maybe I think I've complained enough, whatever.